Hello and welcome to another episode of the HaskinCast Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I have a very special episode for you this week. As you can tell by the title, I do not normally review other people's albums. I've reviewed mine, and that's in the way of getting description and some backstory and stuff out there. But, and also, some free promotion. I have a show. Why would I not promote my own stuff? But this is all about Deep Purple's 21st studio album, Whoosh. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. This album just came out on August 7th, the last day of National Clown Week. I know that's not a worldwide holiday. It's barely even a United States holiday, but there it is. So the album comes out, and within a couple of days, they're chart topping all over the world. And it's just awesome to see. For a band that started in 1968, they've been together for 52 years. Sometimes a little bit on and off, which is understandable. But how many bands have really sustained that long? Very few. But here you've got three people from probably the most known, considered classic Mark II lineup, one person who's still an original member of the band, and also we have some players that have been in the band for a long time. So this lineup has been together for quite some time. You've got Steve Morse on guitar, Don Airey on keyboards, Ian Pace on drums, Roger Glover on bass, and Ian Gillan on vocals. And you guys have heard me talk about how much this band means to me. Biggest influence in my career by a country mile. And not just the music. I mean, I've learned so much from the music about how the interplay between different members works, how solid the rhythm section could be with giving each other the freedom to go where they want to go. The interplay between guitar and keyboards, and then just the overall sound of the band, and then the whole process of adding vocals to it. And as Ian Gillan has said many times, it's an instrumental band that I put vocals to, because the way that they record is they actually record all the music first, and then Ian sits down, works on the lyrics. I don't know if he's still doing that with Roger or not. I would imagine so, but everything I've heard in interviews kind of alludes to the fact that he's doing it by himself, but I can't imagine that Roger's not involved. But either way, the music gets done, then the lyrics. And through some interviews I've heard recently since this album has come out, I have heard that Ian actually is a little bit more involved than I thought during the writing process, saying, can you leave a little more room here in this part? If that's true, that makes a lot more sense to me, because it seems like with the way I thought that they did it, which was he just sits there and listens to what they do, and then they record, and then they go away, and then he goes, okay, now what am I going to do? You could really paint yourself into a corner of wanting to be able to do something lyrically that you just don't have the room to do because the band's gone, the song's recorded, you get what you get. But if he has a little more say during the process of saying, hey, I like this idea, can we extend that out another 4 bars because I'd like to add 2 lines in here, that to me makes much more sense. So I'll have to try and get that confirmed which way it goes, because the impression that I've gotten previously versus what I'm getting now are two different things, and this makes a lot more sense to me. Just to give a reference, so today I'm recording this on August 9th, which is Sunday, so 2 days after the album has come out, and the Deep Purple Facebook page posted the iTunes album charts as of this morning. So this is just iTunes. This isn't Amazon. This isn't any of the physical CDs, any of the direct orders to their website. They've got a CD. They've got a CD DVD combo, which has an hour-long interview with Roger Glover and Bob Ezrin, or conversation that was taped, I guess. I haven't received mine yet, so I don't know fully what it encompasses, but I did see that was on there. And then, of course, the album. Then there's other versions of it. There's the album, the actual LP, 12-inch vinyl record. Then there's a box set of records and different colored vinyls and all these different configurations they have. So I ordered the CD, DVD, and T-shirt, and I'm currently waiting for that to arrive from England. Of course, with COVID, the shipping is slower. And there would have been no reasonable way for them to ship it ahead of time so that the album would be here on the release date. And then some people would have it early. You'd be having people bootleg it. It would just be a mess. So I don't mind waiting to get my copy. Plus, I ordered it on iTunes anyway, so I already have the album. I'm really just waiting for the packaging and the booklet and this DVD and T-shirt and all that. But just to give you an idea, so 2 days after the album released, the iTunes album charts, this is just albums, not singles, not anything but iTunes, Number 1 in Brazil, Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Luxembourg, Norway, Poland, Russia, Slovenia, which I don't think I've ever even heard of, and Sweden. Number 1 in all those countries 2 days into the release. They are number 2 in Austria, Bolivia, Italy, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. Number 3 in Belgium, India, and Turkey. Number 5 in Ireland. Number 8 in Australia and Hong Kong. Number 9 in the Netherlands. Number 10 in Bulgaria, Spain, and Canada. And number 17 in the United States. This is on day 2. Already topping the charts. They did great with Infinite too. I didn't see all the numbers, but I know that they really broke some barriers with that. And it's great because for any band to cut through in this day and age is difficult. And I'm glad to see that people are appreciating the music that this band is putting out now. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think Infinite is one of the best albums I've ever heard. This album is absolutely fantastic. I've only heard it through once, so I haven't really formed opinions on a lot of the songs yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to the song, and then I'm going to come back and talk about the points of the song, and that's how we're going to do this today. But it really is amazing to see that, first of all, music is ageless, absolutely ageless. If you can still physically perform and write and record, that's all that you need to do. It doesn't matter that these guys are in their 70s. It doesn't matter what they did when they were in their 20s. You could do music anytime you can physically do music. And if you can't perform it, you write it for someone else to perform. There's no limits when it comes to what we can do. Now, I am limited personally in the way that I can't sing. So I cannot perform as a vocalist, but what would I do? Then I would hire a vocalist if I needed one. There are some older recordings that the vocal tracks are good, and I'm able to use those on future productions that I'm doing of releasing those songs. But for the most part, I can't really record anything new, or very limited new. So for what I can't sing, well, you find somebody who can. It's that simple. But these guys are still at the top of their game. I saw them in September of 2019 at the House of Blues here in Vegas. And it was one of the most energetic shows I've seen. And I've seen them on just about every tour since Perfect Strangers in '84. So a lot has changed within the band, but the energy, the magic on stage, and the best part of seeing Deep Purple live is that you can tell that they're just loving what they're doing. You know, it's not, oh God, we have to do this again, or all right, well, let's get through this one. It is just every moment up there is pure joy, and you feel it. You see it in them. You see it in their movements and their body structure. You see it on their faces. You feel it and you hear it in the music. It's an absolutely amazing experience. So when the world opens up and these guys start going on tour again, go see them, because it's really unlike most things I've ever seen in my life. And I've said before, I've had the pleasure of seeing Uriah Heep a couple times over the last couple years, really for the first time, because I was never aware of any shows that they were doing in the States. So I never went and saw them. And now that I know that they're touring here, is when, you know, again, when the world opens up, definitely going to take advantage and go see it again. But just take the guitarist, Mick Box, just Mick Box alone. You couldn't slap the smile off of that guy's face from the time he walks out on the stage to the time he leaves. They're just enjoying what they're doing. And even when they're singing songs that are like, you know, maybe a little more sad or gut-wrenching, they're still just out there loving performing and loving entertaining their crowds, their fans, knowing that they're doing things that make people happy just by doing what they love. And that, for me, is the greatest gift to any artist, to be able to do something and have people connect with it. That's not why we do it, but it's a great benefit of it. And one thing more that I'll say about Purple is that they've never consciously done something to specifically please people. They write what they feel, they release what they think is good, and they hope that people latch onto it. And other than the record company going, hey, you need to write a single for this album, which is how Black Knight happened. But that actually went very well. People really love that song, and they do that in the show still. But they've never consciously said, we need to write something to please our fans. This is what we think they want, so this is what we're going to structure the song to be. It's never been like that. And you can hear it in their music, because every song, while it's part of an album, is an individual song. and it doesn't fit a formula or anything like that. I think the stuff they're writing now is great. It's some amazing transitions, very intricate parts. I love the stuff that they've done in the past. There isn't an album really that I don't like at least something or the majority of. But Infinite and this album, Whoosh, every song to me just is fantastic. So we're going to get into the songs now, but just a big thank you to everyone for listening to the show. For those that have donated to help me out. Obviously this is all out of pocket for me. You don't hear any corporate sponsors. So everything is kind of on me. So I appreciate everyone who's helped out, anyone who's given reviews on your podcast listening device of choice, whether it be iTunes or Apple Podcasts, which is really, if you're going to leave a review, that's the preferred destination. But also, you can currently hear the show on Google Play. Now, Google Play is going to be switching up their site or their format or something. I've just had to re-register the podcast with them to be able to be set up on that format. I don't know exactly when it's going to change, but my understanding is it's sometime this year. So for those of you that are listening on Google Play, please be aware of that. I don't have the new site yet. When I do, I will update the show notes with it for any future shows starting on that new format. And for anybody that wants to listen on Google Play, if you're listening to this, you probably found it. iTunes and Apple Music is staying the same. Most of the episodes have been able to go up on YouTube. There are a few of the back episodes that did not manually or did not automatically convert that I have to manually get up there. And the one with my friend Travis that was banned because we used part of a Billy Idol song. Yes, the auto detectors did that. So, and I understand the auto detector algorithm is changing too. So, it's so tough to navigate these waters. When you think you've got it figured out, then they're going to start changing formats, changing how things are done. And it is a bit of a chore to keep up with it. Hopefully I'll be able to keep the show going on all the formats that it currently is. I know it's on Spotify. It's on a bunch of different podcast outlets. Podbean is my host. That's who I hired to do the distribution for the show. So you can always find the show on Podbean, and it's on iTunes, like I said, and everywhere else. So thank you guys for those. Please remember to leave a rating, a review. If you think it deserves a 1-star, give it a 1-star. If you think it's a 5-star, give it a 5-star. If you think it's a 1-star, give it a 5-star anyway. No, I'm just kidding. Be honest. That's the main thing for me. If you don't like the show, that's fine. If you have something constructive to say, I'll always listen to those comments. If you're just going to be somebody that's just going to bash it for no reason. I had somebody on YouTube within 10 seconds of me uploading an episode put a comment on there that was a link to their dating site, because they've got those spiders out there that as soon as things go on, as soon as the spider catches it, it just puts a comment on. That kind of stuff is really annoying, but we deal with it because we want to get the show out there and we want people to hear it and hopefully enjoy what we're doing, just like the musicians do as well. And I'm also a musician and an author. So with everything I put out, obviously, I hope that people will enjoy it. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about Deep Purple's 21st studio album, Whoosh, and the very first song on the album, Throw My Bones. Now, I do want to point out before I go any further that I'm actually working on another project right now. So as I'm working on that on and off, I'm doing a song review in between. So if the audio sounds a little bit different from song to song, it's just because I've had to move around my setup to work on the other project. And, the mic doesn't go back exactly into the same spot, and I don't face it exactly the same every time. So the audio may vary slightly. Now, this song, Throw My Bones, I love the concept of this song. It's basically about the old fortune tellers that would, kind of like the tea leaf readers, where they can say, I can see your future based on how the tea leaves land on the cup. Just total shoddy fortune telling, which, no one can predict the future exactly anyway. So they would just take the bones of an animal and throw them down on the ground and say, oh, because this landed this way, this means that this is going to happen to you. And because the wing landed here, it means you're going to find love and all this crap. And, Ian's point on this is that he doesn't want to know the future. He just, would rather have the fun still be in finding out things as they unravel. But it's basically about that concept. And then apparently they started painting the bones to make it more interesting. And then that eventually turned into dice. So people would cast dice and things like that. Now they're still doing it with tarot cards and that sort of thing. There's literally nothing that can predict the future. Absolutely nothing, unless time travel is real and you meet a time traveler and he tells you what happens. But then you might do something that would alter the course of the timeline, and that doesn't happen, which would make him look like a liar, even though based on his timeline, he was telling the truth. So time travel is a whole nother podcast. I'd actually like to delve into that topic with somebody one of these days. But for now, we're talking about Throw My Bones. So right off the bat, this kicks off the album with just a good solid, this is going to be a good rock and roll album. I love the sound of it. I do find it interesting looking at the waveform of the file. It's basically brick wall limited through the bulk of it, except for the beginning and the end. Just almost a solid waveform. And I don't know that I necessarily like that. I understand loudness metering, but personally, I don't know, that kind of pushes it. It doesn't distort. It doesn't sound bad. But I wonder what a mix would be like if it was more, mixed on the strengths of where the music hits higher and where it doesn't. I've brickwall limited some of my stuff, and I tend not to like the way it sounds. But this sounds good. I just wonder if it would have sounded better had it not had that treatment applied to it. But the song itself is fantastic. I love the chorus. I love the backing vocals. I think it sounds really strong. Steve's guitar work is fantastic. It's just a solid song. It's exactly what you would expect from Deep Purple to play. It sounds rich and full. The drums are great. They're not overplayed. The fills are very, very tasteful, right where they should be. Nothing too crazy at all. Great transitions. That's one thing that I have to say too, for Purple, is that their transitions, the last few albums, are just fantastic. They're not, just, okay, well, let's just do our 2-note intro into the next section. They're actually really intricate transitions. And I love the way that they come out of the solo and go back into the verse. I think that's great. This is one of those songs, honestly, if it were 3 or 4 minutes longer, I would probably just fully enjoy every moment of it. And it's a fun song. It's got an interesting concept. I love the tones. I love the chords that they chose. It's really just a great song, and I can't say enough good things about it. I think it's a very powerful opener for the album. I think that was a great choice. And so on to the next one.
Drop the weapon, kick it away. Drop your gun, look the other way. Drop your weapon, live another day. Drop your blade, listen while I say.
All right, before we get to Drop Your Weapon, there was one other thing I forgot to add about Throw My Bones, which is that the song fades out. And you don't hear a lot of Deep Purple songs fading out. In fact, I remember John Lord saying one time that he felt that doing a fade out on a song was cheating because you couldn't fade it out live. So if you couldn't come up with an ending, you had a real problem. And so it's kind of weird, now that I think about it, to hear a Deep Purple song fading out. There's probably been some that I haven't consciously made that connection to, but certainly that stood out to me for Throw My Bones. But Drop the Weapon, this is a good, straightforward rock and roll tune. It's got a great solo from Don Airey, really solid backing from the rest of the band, nice little spot where Ian Pace gets to shine a little bit. Really solid vocal from Ian. But what's interesting too is that you could kind of hear the background singers are female. And I remember listening to an interview about that with Don Airey, where apparently there was a song on Infinite that didn't get released that they had hired some backup singers for, because it gives a nice full sound. If it's just Ian doing the backups, then it really just sounds like Ian being thicker or maybe harmonizing himself. But to add some other studio singers can be a nice twist on things. So you could hear them. They're very well mixed in to where they don't stand out, but they definitely have a presence. So I thought that was, and it's Bob Ezrin, so it's going to be very well mixed. But great song. It's interesting, when I first heard it, and there were really 3 songs that I became very familiar with, which was Throw My Bones, Man Alive, and I can't think of the other one. Nothing at all. Wow. I should have thought of that first. So those were the 3 songs that were released prior to the album coming out. And I was not going to listen to them. I thought I'd rather hear the entire album in context of itself, not have certain songs that I know better than other songs. But I had an opportunity to do a masterclass with Steve Morse over Zoom. There were 25 of us that got in. And I thought, if I'm going to be doing this class, I'm sure he's going to be talking about the new album, maybe playing a little bit from it, which he did. And so I was really glad I familiarized with those songs previous to that meeting. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so now there's a new album, but there's songs that I know really well and songs that I don't know at all. And it's really, it feels a little unbalanced for me as a listener. But I'm probably the only person or maybe one of 3 people in the world that would feel that way. But in any case, I'm glad I listened to those other songs. So Drop the Weapon was a new song for me. And it's interesting because as I first heard it, I thought, wow, this could have easily fit into Rapture of the Deep. There's something about the tonality of Don's keyboard with Steve's guitar and the bass from Roger that I don't know if it's just the way it's blended together or the pitches that they chose, but something about this seems to say that I think that this would have fit well on Rapture of the Deep because it was a little more straightforward bluesy album, and this is a good blues rock tune. But I like it. I think it's a really interesting sound, which I like. I haven't really got into the lyrics of too many of these songs yet, only because there's so much to pay attention to musically that as I listen to the songs a few more times, I'll start to get into the lyrics. So I can't comment too much on them right now, except for the 3 songs perhaps I'm a little more familiar with. But the vocals sound great. It's just a good, straightforward rock tune, and I give it a thumbs up. And next, we will be talking about We're All the Same in the Dark, which I don't know yet if that shares the context that it seems to. We'll find out. So just upon listening to that opening, you can hear how rich and full the song is. I love Pacey's drums on this album, by the way. The kick is big, but it's kind of punchy. It really just kind of smacks me in the chest a little bit. Really, really like that sound that they got for this album. Infinite was good. I think the kick was a little less punchy, so I personally prefer this sound, but I liked what he had on that album too. This just, to me, kind of hits home a little bit more. Really interesting riff right off the bat. It's definitely not, it's kind of like a standard riff, but it just has a little bit more pizzazz to it. And you would think that after all the songs that have been written up to this point, that there would just be nothing new, nothing that you could find that's different from everything else. But I think that they're really good at finding those little intricacies that make riffs that could be simple remain simple, but be more interesting. And I really like that, just that little da-da-da-da-da, just has like a little bit of pizzazz to it. So I like that. Vocals are really interesting. Just upon listening again, I'm still not sure what it's about. It could be metaphorical because Ian is very good at that. But it certainly is interesting, just the basic concept of the title, how, and I guess that's kind of similar to a couple other things on the album, how much that applies to the world that we live in today. And you have to remember that they wrote this about a year ago or so, and it's been a while in the pipeline. Originally, it was supposed to be released in June. They pushed that back because of COVID, mainly because record stores weren't open and they didn't have, the postal all over the world to be able to get the album out. So they pushed it back a couple months to August. But it's interesting because you look at the racial tensions and everything that are going on right now, and you think about a concept like We're All the Same in the Dark and how that could apply really to so many things that are happening. I mean, obviously it wasn't the intention at the time because this wasn't happening when they wrote it, but it certainly is interesting how appropriate it is. One thing I found of interest in here was just as it headed into the solo. And I think Steve's sound is really interesting on this solo. It kind of made me feel a little bit, had a little bit of Southern charm to it, maybe. I don't know if that's the right term, but that's what's coming to mind. But Ian's vocals, they ended a line, what I felt was a line early, and I was kind of waiting for the next ending line to be there, not realizing he had already delivered it. So certainly it's all acceptable, however you want to do it. I think I'm kind of trained in that 4/4 world where, everything sort of completes itself on the fourth pass or the fourth line. And he took that away on this one, which I thought was kind of fun, actually. It's nice to have things changed up a little bit here and there. Nothing wrong with it. I wish I would think of more things to do like that to keep things spicy and interesting. But I really liked it. I love the sound. I love the tone of the song. I love the little things that they throw in, that the musicians throw in between lines. Just those are the kind of things that can make a song like this special, because for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward song. I love Ian's harmonizing himself. I love his backing vocals, especially at the very end. I think it's very powerful. I think he sounds fantastic. And, all these songs, let's just go into the premise that I love this album and I love all the songs. There may be things that I say that I'm like, well, that's kind of weird, like him ending that line early, but I have a very, very positive attitude toward this album. And I wanted to do this in a way before I knew the songs too well, because once you know the songs really well, a lot of those nuances you kind of hear without hearing. You know they're there, you feel them, but you don't really pay attention to them. And when you're hearing songs for the first few times, you're a lot more attentive as a listener, I think. And so I wanted to do this before I got too familiar. So if I sound somewhat uneducated or descriptive, I think that's probably why. But I didn't want to miss too much in the songs when I talked about them. So and Purple's really known for throwing in those little inflections all the time. Richie used to do that too in Rainbow, and more so recently, where it's like he's just soloing all the time. And during the verses, there'll be little licks that he does, and it's a different style of playing, but it definitely keeps the song moving forward. You're not just hearing the riff under vocals, you're hearing the riff, but with these little treasures that just pop up here and there, which I think is cool. I think it keeps the song moving. Because it is a fairly simple, straightforward song. So that is We're All the Same in the Dark. And now we move on to what is probably my favorite song on the album, Nothing at All. So I chose to use a clip from the intro of the song instead of the chorus because just right off the bat, I love the tone of this song. The gentle muted picking, the chords of the keyboard, the octave of the bass, it just fits so beautifully together and creates a really interesting, intriguing mood, I think. And when I heard the song the first time, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the singles that they released. I just was right into it. I was locked on, ready to hear the rest of the song, because that intro, it just really fascinates me, the way that it feels. It creates to me, and this might sound weird, it might not, I don't know, but it creates an autumn feel. Like I feel like the ground has started filling up with brown leaves, and there's just that crispness in the air that comes with fall. Of course, we don't have too many changing leaves here in Las Vegas, but in other cities they do. And I grew up in Michigan, so I very vividly remember what autumn's like. I remember the smell of the wet leaves. I remember the atmosphere in the air, the grayer skies starting to form, feeling that transition that we were heading out of summer and starting to head toward winter. And I love that. Like right off the bat, that's what you're getting with this song. So it's going to make you feel or connect with whatever it's going to make you feel and connect with. But for me, that was the element right away. It just immediately brought me into that zone. So, but just those first couple of measures, I just love the feel and sound. And then you move into this intricate guitar part and interplay with the keyboard, which is one of the hooks of the song to me, is just this interplay right here. And it's so brilliantly played, so brilliantly felt out. And Steve played a little bit of this for us in the masterclass, and it was just amazing to watch him play it, because it's almost blinding. it doesn't sound, it kind of sounds fast, but it doesn't sound ridiculously fast, like an Yngwie Malmsteen kind of thing. But when you're watching him play it, you're like, I don't know how you're hitting all of that. I know you're really good, but I don't know how you're hitting all of that. It just seems like somewhere in there you would just screw up something on every take. But he nailed it, and watching him play it was a pretty amazing experience because no one's really seen that yet. Since they're not touring, they're not in videos. There's no video footage that's been released. We were probably the first people outside of the band and the people in the studio or people that were there at the rehearsals that are privileged enough to have seen this intricacy performed, and it was quite a beautiful thing, I have to say. Then you got Don Airey taking over on keyboard and just following up. It feels kind of like question answer responses, and it's just a really neat feeling thing. And then when you get to the chorus is very powerful, great backing vocals. Everything just sounds really nice and thick, and the whole thing about it being nothing at all. The concept of it is there's an old lady, and she's not one of my favorite people, being that she's Mother Earth. She just goes and knocks all the leaves off the tree, which is kind of rude. But if you think about change of seasons again, now you've got that, autumn into winter kind of feel, which is really interesting because I had not heard the chorus previously before I heard that intro. So I'm already locked on to the seasonal transition. And then we've got this, here's Mother Nature coming along and just going, okay, well, now it was fall and now it's winter. And well, we're going from summer to fall to winter in this song, really. And I find it really fascinating that I had connected with the seasonal element, considering that's where the song headed lyrically. But it just kind of gives you this, it's nothing. You can get upset about whatever you want, and in the end of the day, it's nothing because we're going to change seasons. We're going to do this. This is going to happen. We're going to have transition. And that's what I get out of the song. I haven't heard the full official description of the meaning of the song yet, but that is what that's what I get out of it. So it's great. But over the whole feeling of the song is great. Don's solo is just phenomenal. It has such a great feel to it. The stuff that Steve does is amazing. Roger and Ian holding up the rhythm section, just really just giving them the foundation to do these, just kind of go off wherever they feel like going in the solos, because it's really kind of, it's structured because you're dealing with world-class players, but at the same time, it kind of feels like it's just all over the place when it's really not. And I find that fascinating. I think Don said it was based on a Bach piece, but I can't remember now if this was the song he was talking about. It was something for violin. I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, the interplay is just such beautifully crafted music. I don't know how you could come up with something for me that would top that kind of intricacy and still maintaining its beauty, because you could be an intricate player. You could play all these notes, you can play them really fast, but they don't have meaning. They don't have feeling to them if they're not in a context. And I think that they've created that intricacy while staying in that context and just really keeping it wonderful. So this is definitely my favorite, if not my favorite songs on the album. But again, to be fair, I had this on the pre-release, so I know this song better than the rest of the album, So I have to wonder again, had I been able to hold off and just listen to the album straight through, had what my feeling would have been in the ranking on it. But it definitely is a song that really touches me. It just warms me up whenever it comes on and I hear it, and just hear that opening tone. I know I'm in for a good time. I know I'm going to be listening to a great song, and well done, guys. All right, No Need to Shout is the 5th track on this new album, Whoosh. And man, this is another just powerful, straight rock and roller that I really like. Again, I kind of felt like this could have been on Rapture of the Deep, and maybe it's just something about the piano, maybe it's something about the tonality, but I think it would have fit well on that album also. I don't necessarily mean writing-wise, but sound-wise for sure. Now, okay, be honest. If you've listened to this song already, how do you not think that it's initially a remake of Perfect Strangers? Because it just has that straight, keyboard chord, has the same feel to it. I was like, wow, what the hell? And then, of course, it went into something else completely, which was a really nice surprise. I really like where they took the song. Again, starts out with just a great riff, a powerful drum beat, groove and bass line, another classic song. And I hate using the word classic, but when you're comparing it to songs by a band that's been around for half a century, it's kind of hard to find another word to utilize, because there is something about their sound that even when they changed the writing, the sound of the song, you would know that it was Deep Purple just by listening to it, which is to me what makes it classic. I love the piano solo. I love the guitar work on it. Steve is really good at playing a riff and then playing these sort of muted notes in between to keep the rhythm going. I really like that. I think that helps the song just groove along. And when you've got somebody like Roger backing it up, the harmony with that bass line, or backing up the melody, I should say, with the bass line, it's just a recipe for magic. And I really liked his work, especially during the guitar solo, what Roger's doing in the background. It's got a great groove to it. I love Don's piano work. It's amazing watching that guy play, because it looks like he's just chopping away at the keyboard, and it looks like he doesn't, he's not really going for anything. But when you hear what he's doing, it's amazing. Like, you can't argue with the visual technique at all when you hear what the output is, because it really is just such a stunning and tasteful and feeling player. Really, really dig this song. I love the drum part at the end too. It's a nice little way to end a song. You don't hear that a lot. And so as the guitars fade out with the chord, and it's not a fade out song, but when the song's ended but the guitars are carrying on, there's this nice little thing that Ian Pace does, which I really like. Just kind of ties the song up well and says, okay, that was that song. I'm ready to move on to the next. But it's definitely a great rock and roll tune, and I would highly recommend listening to it. So now we get to, okay, that was really crappy, I realize. What an amazing intro that is. First of all, great work by Don Airey to create this sort of moody, almost you feel like you're going into a 50s horror movie. And of course, it brings me back to the song Vincent Price, which they did a couple of albums ago with Bob Ezrin. And this seems almost like a continuation of that. The mood of it, that sort of horror movie keyboard from the old B-movie days. Really like it though. It's definitely setting a tone for the song. And of course, the vocal delay, I really like that. I think it works well in the song. Effects can really be overkill sometimes. They can ruin the quality of a vocal track. They can be distracting. But here, I think they were done very, very tastefully. I think if it had been any bigger, had delayed one more time, it would have been too much. But I thought they did something really, really nice in creating that atmosphere. And again, it just furthers that sort of disjointed feel that you get when you're listening to music that would fit into a horror movie. And that sort of, the voice almost feels disembodied when you hear those fading delays. And I think that they made a really good choice for that. I also love the backups on this, the backing vocals. They could be done by Don Airey, but I think those are actual singers. I'm not sure. I don't have any documentation or anything to validate my argument one way or the other, but I would say most likely they're backup singers. But either way, it's a very nice touch. It's very gentle and delicate, and just enhances. It doesn't overshadow. It doesn't overtake. It doesn't really make a standout appearance. It just enhances, which is something that when you're working with music like this, it's very careful how you have to be very careful how you layer it. If you make anything too loud, anything too quiet, it doesn't work. It has to sit right perfectly where it needs to sit. And I think they found that sweet spot for those vocals or that keyboard. I also like that it's a waltz. It's not uncommon for rock bands to do a 3/4 time signature from time to time, but a lot of times you do it and you don't really realize it. Like Bananas, the song Bananas, I think was in 7, and kind of throws things off a little bit. I want to say, I can't remember now. I know there were a couple other songs that I had connected to this, but I can't think of what they are at the moment. But a waltz is always nice. In fact, a little bit of movie trivia. All the battle scenes in the movie Gladiator are waltzes. And when you think waltz, you think traditional, old people dancing very slow, just a boom, tap, tap, boom, tap, tap, kind of, country maybe. No, not at all. It's basically just that, anything that's in a 3/4 time signature can be considered a waltz. This is definitely a waltz. But very, very tastefully done. You just assume with most rock songs they're going to be in 4 instead of 3, and so it's nice when you have the time signature changed up a little bit. They've done that here and there since Steve Morse joined the band, and I think it's really enhanced the music quite a bit. The music before was good, but pretty much everything was a straightforward 4/4 song. So it's nice to have a little variety in there, I have to say. I think they could have brought the guitar up in the mix a little bit. It seems a little bit buried, so I can't tell quite as well what Steve's doing. But what I hear, I like. The best part of this song, to me, is Don Airey's solo in this. It is just like notes are skittering around. Like lights, bright light has come on in the room and the rats are just trying to find a place to hide. It's just all over the place. And what an interesting sound that he found to make this happen. It sounds kind of like it might be the Hammond, but it could be something else. But a very interesting sound and beautifully played. It skitters up and down the board, and I really like that. I like the ending. Again, another fade, which is sort of surprising, but it works for this kind of song. There's some songs, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this well, but there are some songs that are kind of like a party, a musical party. And it's just grooving, and you kind of want it to go on and on and on. If I could give you a visual reference, if you've seen the movie Carlito's Way, I know, how random is this that I'm talking about an Al Pacino movie, but if you've seen the movie and you've seen the end of the movie, the sunset with the dancing and the drummers, that is like a party that you want to go on well after the sun has gone down. You just want it to go on and on and on until everyone passes out. And that's kind of how I feel with this ending. The drums are a little bit upbeat for the mood of it. And I just want it to keep going. It fades out kind of early for me, for my taste. But I've said this before, Birds of Prey from Infinite being one of my favorite songs. That song could have been 10 minutes longer because it had that same sort of musical party atmosphere. And I'm not talking about party like let's get kegs and, let's just be stupid. Just a thing that you want to be involved in as long as it can last. And Birds of Prey went a little bit longer than this did, which was great. But I definitely felt that this song could have gone a little bit longer and it would have worked really, really well. What happened to you last night? I love this song. What a fun rock and roll tune. Really has a feeling of, I want to say it's the 50s era rock and roll. Obviously, a little more modern in the sound. You get the Hammond behind the piano, but there's that, ding, 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 choppy piano that Don's playing, and some great guitar work. It's a really, really just fun driving tune. It's kind of like the one that you would expect people to dance to at a party. It just has a great feeling about it. And it's obviously telling the story about something crazy that happened. I'll have to dig into the lyrics a little more as time goes on and I get used to it. But there's so much musically going on in this song, it's hard to know where to put your focus. So it's one that I think you just have to listen to a bunch of times. I'm going to focus on the guitar on a couple listens, on the keyboards on a couple listens, on the piano on a couple listens, and so on. But it's a really, really cool, really cool song. It's very patient too, I think, during the solo section. Instead of the piano trying to rush those staccato notes to move the song forward, it's just kind of following and saying, I'll play along as long as you want. It's not rushing to get anywhere, but it moves at the same time. It's a really interesting combination. Definitely love it. I really love the transitions too, going from one part to another. And I said earlier, I think that this is something that Purple's really great at. Probably one of the best I've ever seen for bands, because most of them just move from one part into another or do like a one measure transition. But these guys are just like, let's just make it interesting to get it from point A to point B. And that's something that I really want to work on in my music too. Not so much the mental sauna stuff, but or the horror stuff. But if I'm writing, a straightforward song like a rock and roll or a pop piece, I really want to start building up my transitions more. This is really inspiring me to work on that, because it's something that I feel can really enhance the song. And if you don't think so, just listen to this song again, because it will definitely show you that it's the way to go. But very, very cool. I like the vocal doubler on it too. It's a little off-putting at first to me until you get used to it. But I like the sound of it. I think it really adds to, like I said, I think it's the 50s, maybe that sort of 50s. I want to say rockabilly, but when I think rockabilly, I think like the Stray Cats. And this doesn't really seem like a Stray Cat song, at least the stuff that I know, which I will highly admit my Stray Cats knowledge is minimal. It isn't the stuff that I've heard from them. Like, I like it, but it's just not my genre. So I really haven't paid much attention. So I haven't done a deep dive or a dive at all into those guys. So it may be rockabilly, but it definitely has like a sort of 50s. I want to say 50s diner. I don't know. I don't know exactly what words I'm going for, but it has a certain retro feel. I'll just say that. And when I say retro, I don't mean the 80s. Everybody seems to think that retro means the 80s nowadays. As far as I'm concerned, it's still the 80s. It would make life a lot easier. Just a really long decade. So, another thumbs up. I give this one. I love Roger's grooving on this. And again, great ending. So another thumbs up for me on this album that I've already given a thumbs up to. Good Lord, what a kick-ass song. Great groove right off the bat. You're just put into this zone, you're locked into the tempo, and you're going for a ride. Great work. Another just really, it's not surprising that they come up with these kind of grooves, but it's just great to hear how consistent, how solid, how easily I just connect with them. And, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I have no idea, but I know that I do. And hopefully this will help you too as well. So first of all, great groove. I love, again, Ian's voice just sounds so good on this song, so natural. There is a little bit of that delay on the voice again, which I'm not sure if I like. I'm sure I'll grow to like that, but it seems to me like that's, to me, one of those things where if I use that on an album, it's pretty much going to be on one song in one part, not something that I'm going to be replicating in other places on the album unless there's a very good reason to. I'm not really sure this warranted that, but that's just me. But I definitely love the sound of his voice. He just sounds fantastic. Don Airey's synth solo on this is just amazing. You really feel like you've been taken on a journey within the journey just listening to that solo. And that's really what, to me, a solo should be. It should be a journey within the journey. And he just does a great job taking us all over on this one. Really love it. And then coming into Steve's solo, I really love the vocals too that they put in Vian's over Steve's solo. Very technically profound solo that Steve did. I love it. Just you feel like he's not being sloppy. He's just being so precise, and it's got a really good feel to it as well. Really like that. I loved the reference that Ian makes to the song Trashed from the Born Again album that he did with Black Sabbath. And also he remade that particular song on his Gillen's Inn album. Really, really good reference there. Unexpected, but comedic. It was nice. And I think that those of us that have made that promise, to be fair, have made that promise more times than we care to admit that we've made that promise, but we have, and we'll probably continue to make it from time to time. I'm not a heavy drinker myself. I very rarely drink anymore at all, which makes me the cheapest date in Vegas because I pretty much have almost no alcohol tolerance whatsoever. I don't have anything against drinking. I think it's fine. We have a huge industry for that here, obviously. But for me, I work all the time, and I don't like to drink when I work because that means that I will not work as well or efficient, and I'll probably just have to go back and do it over again anyway. So I might as well just stay sober and do my work and then have an occasional drink here and there. But any more than two, and you could probably manipulate me like a marionette. Don't do that, though. So I love the ending passage that just goes into this wonderful music bed that Don has created with Steve putting in some inflections here and there. It has just a really good feel to it. There's a nice little splash in there that Ian Pace plays, and I can't recall of the countless hours I have listened to Ian Pace play. I know he has a splash on his kit, but I can't remember a time I've ever actually heard him strike it. And it sounds like he struck it in this song. So that was kind of a nice little treat. Unexpected. I like that. But it's just got this beautiful, luxurious, heavenly sort of ending to the song, which is a nice, unexpected thing when you start off with a groove like this does. There was a song called Silver Tongue, and it was off the Bananas album. And I really like that same sort of groove that it started out with, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And just that really stayed solid through the majority of the song. And the song ended that way, oddly with a fade out now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe there's more fade outs than I remember, at least in the more recent albums. But it has that same sort of solid groove that you just lock onto right away. You're there for the ride, like this one started out with. But this one has a really nice unexpected ending. Really did not see that coming. And a very nice way to end a very great song. And so now, where are we at? We're on to Power of the Moon. And Power of the Moon, I heard Don say in an interview that this one was a little bit challenging to record. He wasn't quite getting with Bob Ezrin, I guess, on this one, the sound of the synths and things that he was trying to use. So it's interesting when you hear some of the backstories of the trials and tribulations. You know, not everybody's going to agree on everything. Not everyone's going to understand the idea that everyone else is trying to convey. So even guys that have been at it this long, 21 albums in, although be it through different lineups of the band, there's still going to be those issues that people have, and that can cause songs to be challenging. But in the end, personally, I think that this song came out great. And so here is a little bit of Power of the Moon.
Who am I to say things may not all be what they seem? And how can I just bear the facts of life? And who am I to speak about the fabric of a dream?
All right, track 9, Power of the Moon. Now, title-wise, this is something I would have expected to show up on, say, a Black Mars Night album or maybe a Dio album. So it's kind of intriguing to have something sounding so mystical on a Deep Purple album, but this is the song, and it starts out with this very intriguing little part with piano and guitar, with a really nice, if you listen through headphones especially, there's a sort of ominous synth in the background that Don plays through the opening. And I think it really adds another level of depth to that. But it starts off kind of like the other song that I said that had sort of an ominous feel to it. I think it was Step by Step. And it's just kind of an intriguing, I feel like something is about to happen, maybe something that's not good. And I like that. I like being kind of drawn into, what's going on here. With a typical rock and roll song, it starts off with a great riff, powerful drums, that sort of thing. And then you have your vocal come in and tells you the story. But this is something that really just kind of is a little bit mystifying. And you want to know what's going on. You want to know if you should feel safe, if you should worry. So I like that. Just right off the get-go. But it's a great start to a song. The vocals on the song remind me of another Deep Purple song, this one from The Battle Rages On, called Solitaire. And that's another one that has a really cool feeling to it. Kind of a bit of loneliness, but also a bit of it's going to be okay, but a bit of maybe it isn't. Something that just really keeps you kind of on the edge. And I like that. You don't really expect that kind of music from a rock band, but Deep Purple is definitely delivering some very interesting sounds on this album. It's a very eclectic album. And you just don't know what you're going to get from song to song, which makes it interesting. After, it's great to have a rock album that's all rock and you just go from one song to the next, but it's nice to have something that's really such a variety. It almost reminds me more of a film soundtrack, because in a film soundtrack, you've got all these different cuts of music. You have the opening, you have the songs that set up scenes, you have the themes that you'll hear again, but you've also got all this other incidental music that really breaks up the pace of the film. You've got music that you hear in the car, music you hear in a restaurant or a bar, music that might just be for one character or for one scene, all this different stuff that comes together. But you also have the overall score. So this is really nice to have stuff that's just really different from one song to another. I think it makes for a very interesting overall album. Really like the staccato guitar and piano. I think that like I said, adds a nice layer of intrigue. Ian Gillan's vocals are so strong on this. I think it's one of the best songs for vocals on this one. He just sounds so good on this one. He sounds good on all of them, but this one in particular, really, really nice stuff. I love the Hammond solo is really good in this. And it's just another one that just kind of carries you. You're intrigued from the time it starts. You want to know where it's going. You want to understand what's going on. And it does not disappoint through the ending fade. That's right. Another song that fades. It just seems so weird to me. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, this song faded and that song faded. Solitaire faded. Perfect Strangers faded. So now I'm starting to question my own memory of John Lord's phrase there. I do remember him saying that. I know he said that, but maybe the band did fade some songs, more songs than I realized percentage-wise. But anyway, Woman from Tokyo, I know that fades too. I just realized that. But another great song, and it moves the album. And so far, I mean, we've been through now 9 of the 13 songs. And I have to say the order of the songs is really good too. They really flow well from one to another, which is really tough to do when you have such an eclectic mix of songs. If all of your songs are rock songs or country songs or classical songs, then it really comes down to, does the tempo of the song and the ending of the song go well before the tempo and the beginning of the next song, and just kind of finding the best format for those songs. At least that's the way I do it. I'd love to know how guys like Bob Ezrin sit down and decide the order of things, or Bob and Roger, or whoever was involved in that decision-making process. I'd really like to know what their thought process is behind that. I only know how I do it, how a couple of my friends do it. I'd really like to find that out. So if I get a chance to interview anyone, I'll have to remember to ask that question. And yes, I have reached out. They did a thing. They sent me a notice that there was a quiz, and you take the quiz. I got 9 out of 11 right. It said I was like a master or professional or whatever it was. And then you go into a pool to get some sort of like a badge and be one of like so many people to interview the band. You have to submit questions and all that. So I did all that. And then, and I felt kind of special about it because they sent it to me, and I had, I've already applied to interview the band or members of the band, however it winds up. And I've been pushed past the first round now. I'm waiting to hear on the second round. So I am hopeful that someone will come on the show, if not everyone. So I thought that I was getting this invite as a part of that experience because it was just a few days after I had submitted. And then not so much. I went on Facebook, I went on Instagram, and I found that they had the link to that very same thing there. So obviously I reached out. You never know what avenue is going to work. So I reached out to the band through that. I've reached out to the band through their promotional channel as well. And we'll see what happens. I'm hopeful. That's all I can be at this point until I hear something back. I'll just continue to hope that one of them will be interested in coming on the show, or maybe they all will. Maybe two of them will. Who knows? But I have questions for them. And I would love to talk to any of them, but we'll see. So that wraps up Power of the Moon, even though I went off kind of into a random direction. And next we're going to go into Remission Possible. And I've only heard this song once so far, so I'll be interested to see what the lyrical content is because I didn't really catch it the first time. And I'm thinking just based on the title now of the cover, you've got the astronaut. I know that he was featured in the Man Alive video, which is the song after that we're going to talk about. But Remission Possible, like you think mission, you think space. Deep Purple has had a history with space. Obviously, Space Truckin' was a hugely popular hit from the Machine Head album. They would play it live. That song would go on for 20 to 30 minutes. There's a wonderful version of it on Made in Japan. And a couple of other bootlegs that I've heard and some other live stuff. They had that, and then they were friends with some of the astronauts from the Challenger mission that unfortunately they did not work out very well. They wrote Contact Lost on the Bananas album because that happened actually during the sessions of them recording Bananas, and tough time for them for sure. And then they had that, and then obviously this with Whoosh, with the spaceman theme. I told the guys, my friends Nate and John over at the Deep Purple podcast, that I really hope that under the cover is revealed that it's Rod Evans. I think that would be the ultimate full circle for Deep Purple. For those of you who don't know, Rod Evans was the original singer of the band. He had played in a band with Ian Pace called M15, and then they changed it to the Maze. They kept changing their name so that they could keep playing the club circuit. And if they stayed the same band, then they wouldn't be allowed in until everybody played. So they just kept changing their name and re-entering and changing up the songs a little bit. But Rod was the first singer. He sang on Hush, which is probably the most noteworthy thing. He did the first 3 albums that were on the Tetragrammaton label. And no one's seen him or heard from him in some time. The last we heard, he's in the medical profession now, doing well, but there's been a lot of controversy with things he was involved with over the years. The reformation of a non-sanctioned Deep Purple, which there was a horrible lawsuit over. I really think personally that he was kind of the scapegoat, that he was set up from the beginning to be the scapegoat for it, and the people that were really in charge of it really kind of got away. And it's a shame. As I understand it, Rod had to sign away all his rights to anything Deep Purple. So unless the band themselves invited him to do something, I don't think that he has the ability to do much of anything as far as the band goes. But I don't know all the legalities, all the ins and outs. This is just what I'm surmising based on the research I've done and what I've heard. Very sad case, because if you think about the impact that Hush had, not just for Deep Purple, but for that style of music at the time, it was a pretty popular song, and I still love it. I think that's a great solo work by John Lord, great groove by Ian Pace, and some really cool little, I think even with the way that they were played, I think they would still be called trills by Richie Blackmore, but a great song, certainly something that changed the game at that point and was a huge part of the initial success of Deep Purple. But my hope is that at some point someone will pull back the visor on the helmet and reveal that it is Rod Evans. That would be like the ultimate full circle thing. And we'll get back to that in a couple of songs. But for now, let's get into Remission Possible. Oh, I know why I started talking about this, because it seems like mission space seems like it would be related to the cover of the theme. Or the theme of the cover, I should say. Obviously, I've been talking for a while, and in between getting my other project done. But I think that would be really cool. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but that would be kind of neat as well. So anyway, let's get into Remission Possible. Well, it makes me feel to remember why I couldn't remember what the lyrics were, what the story was, because there are none. This is really a prelude to Man Alive. It leads into the show, the song Man Alive. And it's just a short song that really sets it up, but it's a really kind of a powerful little thing. And I love the feel of it going in. It's kind of intriguing. And then it just goes into full on driving, we're moving towards something feel to it. And very well done. The work by Ari and Morse on this one just gets more intense as the song goes on until it kind of dies down to get ready to move into Man Alive. Really cool little tune. And I highly recommend listening to it. I kind of almost think it could have been one song, but I see why they made it separate songs. It probably works better that way, but really it could have been just one thing as it does blend in together. It's always one of those interesting production issues. Do you call it something else? Do you just make that an extension of the original song, cut that off in the single release so that people buy the album version, or make the album version longer, cut down the single for radio play? I don't really know how much they actually think about those kind of things, because I heard one of the interviews saying something about Bob, when they first met up with Bob Ezrin, they discussed in the meeting, like, don't worry about singles, don't worry about radio, don't worry about anything, just go make music. That should be what we're doing, is making the best music that we can make. And I agree with that. For some things, though, there's somebody at some level that has to think about that, because somebody had to decide to release Man Alive and not release Remission Possible as part of it. Somebody had to decide to release Throw My Bones and not Drop the Weapon. Somebody has to make those decisions. So I don't know if that's done, I would imagine, by the record company. I don't know how much say-so the band has in decisions like that, or if they care, if they're like, we make the music, you guys do the corporate stuff. That could be with working with a producer that might be more on Bob Ezrin. I'm really not sure, to be honest. But I do know that somebody made this decision to make it a separate song. If you're listening to it, it just kind of blends in. So you really wouldn't know where one starts and one doesn't. Since they released Man Alive starting where it did, I'm more familiar with that song, so I know kind of where Remission Possible stops, because I know where Man Alive starts. And speaking of Man Alive, let's talk about it. I think Man Alive is just this wonderful flowing song. It's very patient, has a lot of subtleties in it. It's a lot to listen to on the first couple of listens. I think you really have to listen to it a few times to fully get the gist of what this song has going on. I love the vocal doubling that we hear from Ian Gillan. I think it really makes it's just an intriguing way to do things from time to time, especially when you're telling a story. A little bit different than the rest of the album. Very cool. I love the spoken words parts. He did that on the last album in a song, I think it was called Up on the Roof, I want to say. I'm not that great with titles anymore. I used to know everything, the record number, the release, what company did what, the order of the songs, how long they were, what live versions are. Like, I used to know all of that stuff. And as the years have gone by, I've forgotten most of it. So even the titles anymore, because I find I'm mostly listening while I'm doing other things. So I very rarely just sit down, really look at an album, really listen to it. And I think that really started with the advent of compact discs. When the covers got too small, the lettering got too small in the books, it just became too difficult and uncomfortable to try and flesh through all of it. So I think that's when I really started to die down for me, was when we stopped listening to LPs. That beautiful picture on a 12-inch record, whether it be on the disc itself, the picture disc, or on the album cover, where you could really appreciate the detail that the artist put into it. It just changed so much. It just became too small. And I get the concept of it, but at the same point, I think there were some things that got hurt along the way. So I apologize if it's not up on the roof. I'm pretty sure it is, or something similar to that. Yeah. But he had a spoken word part in that I really liked. I didn't care for the way it was mixed. I thought it was too quiet myself, because I found that I had to turn the volume up to be able to listen to it properly, and then hurry up and turn it back down before the music kicked back in so it wasn't too loud. But this is actually blended fairly nicely. And I'll tell you, I think honestly, I know he narrated something. I think it was like a biography on someone famous. I don't remember. I know I never heard it. But he could have been an audiobook narrator very easily. The best audiobook I've ever heard narrated was, it was called The Alchemist. And the version that I heard was narrated by Jeremy Irons. And I thought, man, this guy could read the phone book and people would sit there and listen to it for hours. Ian's another one of those. I think he's great at spoken word. And I like that it kind of appears a couple times in the song. I also like the sort of metronome sound that they set behind him. I don't know if they used a metronome or if they used like moon blocks, which would be fitting with the whole space thing, or if it was something that Don did or programmed or whatever. I don't know how they arrived at that, but I kind of look at it because the song really is kind of about the heartbeat of the earth, I think. And I like that they talk about the earth cleansing itself and, bad things being washed away. And I kind of look at this metronome sound as the heartbeat of the earth in this song. But it's a great song. It moves very well. It's a little slower, but not boring in any way. I think it's a very interesting song. It starts out kind of optimistic with, these light strings, these light vocal bits by Ian, and just really nice, a really nice song. So I'm really glad that they recorded it. And we're getting near the end here. So that was track 11. There's only 2 more to go. And here is where we tie in my Spaceman theory, because they did a cover of the very first song that Deep Purple ever recorded, which, although he wasn't on it, would have been during the Rod Evans era. And this is called And the Address. And this song was the first song on the very first Deep Purple album, Shades of Deep Purple. I don't know if it's actually the first song they physically recorded or not, but it's the first song that appeared on a Deep Purple album. So this was the introduction of Deep Purple to the world, and they decided to redo it for this album. I know that there's been a lot of talk, even within the interviews I've heard, about this very likely being the very last Deep Purple album. That being the case, it seems like they should have put it last and had it, kind of sandwiched, all the other songs in between, a sandwich of And the Address. But there is one song after it called Dancing in My Sleep on this album. But I was very interested when I saw the track list come out some time ago for this album. This track, And the Address, was the one that raised my eyebrow the most, because I really was trying to envision how it would sound with the current lineup and the things that the style that they have now. And so I didn't, when the album came out and I got my iTunes download, I did not just jump in and listen to it. I actually did listen to the album in order, as tempted as I was to put on And the Address first. But it's always been a favorite of mine. The sound of the band was so different back in 1968 when they recorded it. But the song itself has always been a favorite. It features everyone. It features the drums. It features guitar. It features keyboards. Bass is rocking it. It features everybody but the vocalist. And that's kind of an interesting thing, because during the years that Ian Gillan has been in the band, while Deep Purple has done instrumentals throughout other incarnations of the band, there's been very few. The first one is kind of arguable, whether it's an instrumental or not, and that would be Son of Alaric, which was recorded during the Perfect Strangers sessions. It was released on an extended edition of Perfect Strangers. That's how I first heard it. And I think it came out on, or maybe it came out on an EP first. I think it was an EP first, like a 3-song EP. And then when the album was initially sort of remastered by the record company, they had included, it wasn't the official 25th anniversary releases like Roger was doing, but Son of Alaric came out on that as well. Or maybe it was, no, I think it was Not Responsible did. I'm not sure. Now, wow. See, this is what I mean. My memory is not what it used to be. I know I had the song on an LP of some sort. I'm pretty sure it was an EP LP, and I don't remember what else was on it. it might have been like Perfect Strangers Live. I think it was like Knocking at Your Back Door, Perfect Strangers Live in Son of Alaric or something. I can't remember. But I fell in love with the song right away. It's a very long song for a studio song. It's very long, and there's only one part where you hear any voice, and it's at the very end. It sounds like Ian Gillan stepped on a nail, and he makes this kind of sound. But that's it. That's the only vocal that's in it. So is that enough to qualify it to not be an instrumental? Is it still an instrumental? If so, that's the first one I can recall of anything that Ian Gillan was on being an instrumental. And then you move to Bananas, and I believe Contact Lost would be the next. And that was, the one that I said was written for their friends that were on the Space Shuttle Challenger. And then we have, I guess, Remission Possible, even though it's kind of a prelude to Man Alive, it really is an instrumental because within the context of that song, there's no vocals, no dialogue. And then And the Address was always an instrumental. And it does remain an instrumental on this album. It would have been interesting if they would have put lyrics to it. But so those are throughout all of the Ian Gillan era years. Those are the only instrumentals that I can think of. If anybody thinks of any others that I'm not remembering, shoot me an email, scott@scotthaskin.com, and let me know where I messed up. I'm pretty sure that's it, though, which is really interesting. But then when you've got, it's so weird because you've got such musicianship within, the four guys, to not do an instrumental kind of seems like a waste. But then when you've got such an amazing singer as Ian Gillan, why would you take up album space doing an instrumental? There is one more. There is. Okay. It was one that Steve wrote, and I think it was Don had to learn it very quickly, but it is the Well-Dressed Guitar. Now, that did not appear on an album. I think that was on the bonus tracks of the gold version of Rapture of the Deep. I think so. But I first actually heard the song live when I saw them play with Dio and the Scorpions, and they headlined the show. That was, I believe, the first time I heard Well-Dressed Guitar. Blistering guitar riff. Very, very cool song. A lot of work on keyboards, too. But it has a great groove to it. But anyway, so those would be all the instrumentals that I can think of during any Ian Gillan time that were official like album releases or even as bonus tracks. But if I'm wrong, if you've got something else, write me and let me know, because as knowledgeable as I think I am about the band, and I've been proven so often that I'm not. Thanks again, John and Nate at the Deep Purple Podcast, for showing me how much I don't know about this band that I've spent a good majority of my life with. But yeah, if you guys have something, shoot an email over to me and let me know. And in the meantime, let's check out And the Address, the new version by the current incarnation of Deep Purple. It's right out of the gate. It's just very, very powerful. Sounds great. Great new updated version of the song. Missing the long keyboard intro that came with the original. And I always thought that might be a little bit too long. And there was another intro that hit with all the musicians right before this particular version starts. So they cut in a little bit into the original version and started from there. But the soloing's great. The groove is great. Pacey sounds a lot more alive in this song than some of the other stuff where it seems like it's not like he's holding back, but he's playing a little more straightforward. And this one, he kind of lets loose a little bit more, I think. In the original song was very wild. When you listen to that, it's drum fills all over the place, not out of context by any means. They sound great. They're not over the top, but it's very rich in heavy drum activity amidst the guitar solos and the keyboard solos. So this is kind of a nice a nice version of it where, everybody gets to shine a little bit and keep the song moving forward. But I was really impressed with it. I was, when it was about to come on, I'm like, oh, please let me like this. And I really do. I wish it was longer. I wish that there was a little more to it, only because I enjoyed it so much. And that really becomes the challenge with a lot of this stuff. Like I was saying about the quote unquote party songs earlier, the musical party songs. You just don't want it to end. And the Address is always a song that I've just when the end is coming and you feel it, it's like, no, just give me one more round of solos. Give me one more, what would be a verse if this was a vocal song. But that's really, to me, the beauty and craftsmanship of a great song. If I want more of it when it's over, then it was well written. If I am good, like, okay, that was a decent song, and what's next? Then that's the sign of a decent, good song. But the ones that you want to hear again as soon as they're over, or the ones that you wish were longer and you want more of, those are the ones that really, they stick with you, and they're ones that you'll go back to and listen to over and over again because they've connected with you in some way. And The Address has always been one of those songs for me. The only thing that I don't know how I feel about is that there's no cowbell in the song. And that was one that was there was somebody keeping the time with a cowbell. And that had to have been done either by somebody who wasn't playing anything else. Like Ian Pace couldn't have done it, or it was done as an overdub. And from everything I've heard, the recording schedule for this album, Shades of Deep Purple, was so intense that there probably was not time to overdub a cowbell track. So I'm guessing somebody else played it. Maybe it was Rod Evans. I don't know. But I'd love to find out. I'd love to get a chance to ask Ian Pace, because he's the only one there that, the only one of the band there that would know. But yeah, other than that, I feel like it was missing the cowbell. I would like to hear what the cowbell would have sounded like in this version of the song, and keeping with that tradition. It almost seems like it's lacking because of it, but that's because I'm so used to it. For somebody that's hearing the song for the first time, they're not going to think twice about it because they didn't know it was there in the first place. So I always wonder, when people hear a song that has multiple versions, it seems like they like the first one they've heard the best. And I don't know if it's because that's just what they get used to. That's their impression of the song. So anything else throws off their impression. There's got to be some kind of science or something behind that. But it seems the majority of the time, people like the version they heard first the best. So for people that hear this version of And the Address first, I would be curious to know if they like that better than the original version after they hear that second. I'm just a little curious how that works with people. But great song. I'm so glad that they included it on the album. I do think it should have been last. Maybe musically that didn't really work out for them, but I think the ending of it is good. It would be a good ending to an album as well. But that's just me. And that's another important thing when you think about the order of songs, is whether the last song in the album gives it a good ending. Perfect case and example would be You Keep On Moving on Come Taste the Band. I think that ending was a perfect album ending, and little did they know the ending to the band at that time, because that was the last album they recorded before they broke up during the Tommy Bolin era. But the ending of that song is just perfect for the ending of an album. And I think And the Address, I think this would have been a good ending too. They could have carried it out maybe a little more and made it a little more pronounceable if it was going to be the end of the album. But they didn't know at the time anyway, because I would imagine the song order hadn't been chosen while they were working on it. So that really isn't something that they could have controlled unless they specifically said, we are going to record this as if it is the last song on the album. That's the only way you can get away with it at that stage, is if you go in with that intent. But it's a great song. I'm really glad they did it. And I think they definitely did it justice. So kudos to the guys on that as well. And with that, we move into the last song, and probably most unique on the album, Dancing in My Sleep.
I'm flying through the night to the rhythm of the street. I don't know what happened, baby, but my blood.
Well, my first thought when the song started, and you don't hear the intro in the clip that I just played, but my first thought was that this is the soundtrack to a video game or like an 80s action movie or something. It just starts out with a really interesting synthesizer. And I really love what Don created there with that sound, because it's very intriguing. Certainly not something that you would expect a song to start out like on a Deep Purple album. But man, it was definitely refreshing, and it's played intermittently throughout the song, which I like as well. Not overdone, not over pounded on, but just subtle and here and there. And the song ends with that fading out, Yes, I said it, fading out, but very minimally. The song almost has an ending. But yeah, I thought the opening feel of it was great. There's another opportunity here where the vocal delay, I think, does sound really good. Did it pre-delay? Now I can't remember. But the voice again, just phenomenal. You wouldn't think that these guys are the ages that they are. I mean, being in their 70s, you would think that they would not be putting out such aggressive, not really aggressive, but just grooving music that moves forward, that really just makes a statement, and it has the power behind it. So it's great to see the band doing that. This is obviously just all the knowledge that they've built up, all the skills over the years are culminating in these albums. And it's so great to see them topping the charts. I love that this song gives you the ability to hear Roger Glover and Ian Paice a little bit more. Drums and bass tend to get buried in keyboard and guitar oriented music. So it's nice to see that they cut through a little bit more on this song. I kind of feel like I haven't talked enough about the quality of Ian Paice's drumming while I've been talking about these songs, but I mean, it is as rock solid as ever. He's definitely got such a unique sound to him, and not just the tonality, but his playing. It's like you can almost always tell if you hear a track that he's on it. And in fact, I think it was Ready and Willin' or Come and Get It. I can't remember it was one of the Whitesnake albums that he was on, and I didn't know he was on it when I got the album. I just popped the tape in, and immediately my first thought was, is Ian Paice on this? And I looked it up, and sure enough, he was, because he has a very distinct style, but he also has a great sound. In fact, Come and Get It, I'll just side note this really quick. Come and Get It was the album that Whitesnake did with him that I think he had probably one of the best drum sounds I've heard of any album I've heard him play on. And I've heard not everything he's ever done, but the vast majority of it. And so, yeah, that's one of my favorite albums as far as the drum sound goes. But it sounds great on this album too. You know, he's used the same kit configuration for years, and it definitely works for him. It's very odd when you look at it. I've never seen a drummer set up the way he does, not because he's left-handed, but because of the extra tom arrangement. And then he has his ride sits pretty low, so that's spaced out where other drummers might put toms. And then you've got the two floor toms. He has two drums that hang above the floor toms, but those typically don't get played. They're really there more for aesthetic value. But yeah, the three on the hi-hat side is kind of an interesting setup, and then the two over the toms over the floor toms is an interesting setup. Don't really see that out of drummers. I mean, unless you're talking about somebody like, Neil Peart or Terry Bozzio, who just have these ridiculously insane sets, and I hope that they have paid their roadies well over the years. But this honestly, looking at this, the song is great. It moves right from the beginning. Another example of these really interesting transitions that these guys come up with. And then, of course, Don's fingers are just absolute magic on his solo. Just incredible playing. And, again, it's a thing where you hear speed and you hear technical precision, but you also feel something at the same time. I listen to a lot of guys that can play fast, that can play intricate, and you just don't get anything out of it. But with the way that Don plays, and the same with Steve, he may play fast, but there's a story that they're telling in those solos, and you can really feel being pulled or pushed or whatever it is, but you definitely feel something more than just, wow, cool solo, man. Like, there's so much depth to the way they play. So that really does bring us to the end of the album. God, I hope this isn't the last one, but I'm going to say that no matter what. I said it with Rapture of the Deep. I said it with Bananas. I said it with, Infinite. I mean, I've said it all along the way. I've said it with Now What. In the interviews I've heard, they have alluded to this probably is the last one, but you never know. They can't go out and perform just because they're one of the, top selling bands in history. They don't get to override the virus. They still can't go out and do shows right now. So they're just stuck. So maybe they'll get an itch and go, you know what, if we can't play for a while, let's get together and do some jam sessions. Maybe they'll do it over Zoom or something, and just kind of feel out some material, and then go and spend a couple of weeks in the studio with Bob and see if they can put out another album. I'm hoping for that, because we already know that the plans to start touring don't even start until I think it's next spring. I think they have one festival or something that's actually still on the books for this year. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but as far as like their normal tour schedule, and they are one of the heaviest touring bands, they do not take a lot of nights off. They just keep playing. So I don't know what'll happen. I kind of hope that because we already know that we're looking at spring before tours are going to start again, I kind of hope that they do look at that as an opportunity, and maybe they will go record something else. Maybe they won't. A lot of the material comes from what they learn on tour. So it's hard to say. But I'm hopeful. I'm never going to want it to be the end. And in a way, I feel like it's not fair to these guys because they've given us so much. If they just stopped right now, if they said, you know what, we've done plenty, we're happy, I want to live out the rest of my life with my family and friends and not, and live in my home and not be all over the globe, I could not complain about that one bit. I really have no right to. But at the same time, there's that, fan side of me that just says, yeah, but it's never going to be enough. No matter how many times I've seen them live, which has been a good number of times, I have relished every show that I've seen. There was one venue that I thought was terrible, but apart from that, the band still performed great. So I have no right to request anything more of these gentlemen except to come on my show. But I, at the same time, would love anything that they decide to continue doing. I would love to check out and experience, because 21 albums is a lot, but when you spent, I'm going on 50. I think I first found them when I want to say somewhere between 9 and 11. It had to be, I think the Rainbow Straight Between the Eyes concert was 83, I want to say. So if it was 83, then I would have been 11 when I stumbled across Deep Purple. So I'm going on 50. So we're talking a lot of years I've spent listening to the music that these guys that have been in and out of the band have made. And then their families, the stuff Glenn Hughes has done, and Whitesnake and Rainbow and all of that. But it's a lot of music to enjoy, and I really don't have the right to ask for more. But at the same point, it's just hard to know that this might be the end of the collection. I'm sure you guys understand. But enough of me, bantering on about potential sad stuff. This album is fantastic. The culmination of 50 years of Deep Purple has created this album, and all the things that they are in and outside of the band have made them the musicians that they are. And you can see just such an amazing creative side, such a technical side, such a passionate side. And it all gets portrayed in the music. And when you hear these guys talk about the album and you hear them talk about the songs and things that they've been involved with, it's such a joy to share in that music with them. And I thank them for everything that I've learned, everything that I've enjoyed, everything that has, sustained during tough times in life. They've been there, and whether they know it or not. Now, I have had the opportunity to meet now 4 of them, and it's been great to be able to shake their hands and say thank you for everything. But they hear that a lot, and that it's so heartfelt from each single person, and I know they realize that. But to be able to have the opportunity to say thank you, to shake their hands, to just connect with them in that moment, knowing that they've done so much for me, even though it wasn't obviously directed at me, but they've done so much to enhance my life, both as a musician, as a fan of music, and then just through their personalities, the way that you hear them in interviews, the way they talk about people, the way that they treat people. There's so many great things about this band and everything that surrounds it. And I love that they were the first one I saw to do the crew support t-shirts. So while they're unable to tour and make money, so is everyone in their crew and everyone that's in every other band's crew. So they came out with this t-shirt where all the proceeds went to the crew of the band, which I love. I just saw a posting that Uriah Heep is doing the same thing. So I'm going to post that on Facebook, and I will definitely be participating in that as well, because there's, it's important that not just supporting the band, but supporting the crew that keeps them out on the road. So that's it, guys. That's the new album, Whoosh, the 21st studio album from Deep Purple. Man, this went by fast, and I'm looking at the clock. It's like an hour and a half that the show is so far, and wow, it's just been a joy going over the songs, kind of diving into them a little bit. I don't know if I was very articulate because I'm so caught up in the music and what's going on. And like I said, a lot of these I've only heard a couple times so far, so it's not like any other album I could do where I know a lot more of the songs, the in-depth, the intricacies of the music and all that. But there is so much going on in each of these songs, so many little fills and things to look for. So it is available, obviously, everywhere: Amazon, iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, record stores, used record stores that carry new albums, everywhere. It's everywhere. Just search Deep Purple Whoosh and you will find it in all the places. And I'll put some links up in the show notes as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on another episode of the HaskinCast podcast. Keep your fingers crossed, as I have reached out, and we'll see what happens. I'm certainly not I'm not a world-class podcaster that can just get any guest they want. But I have been very fortunate to have some wonderful people on the show, and some more wonderful people that I have lined up. Please help out. Leave a rating on iTunes or Apple Music or Spotify or wherever you're listening, and help get the word out about the show. The bigger the listener base, the more chance you have of getting those people on the show, because the people that are the gatekeepers will certainly be looking at that. And we'll be back with another episode next week. I have no idea who it's going to be yet, but we will be back with an episode one way or another. Thank you guys for joining me. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe out there. And most importantly, please be good to each other.